This is Lana from Oxford Comma Advisory, and today we're going to talk about study abroad destinations, what's available to you, and hopefully that will help you to choose the right country for your study abroad. Firstly, we'll have a look at what's available in terms of the countries that you can go to. We're going to talk about the most popular destinations such as Canada, Germany, Italy, Ireland, Netherlands, United Kingdom, and USA. We're going to talk about each country in detail and the pros and the cons of studying in that country as an international student. But firstly, let's have a look at where do all international students go. So if you look, the majority of the students actually go to the US, which is the most popular study abroad destination. So you have about 1 million going to the US. Then the second most popular country is UK. And you can see there is a pattern. Both of these countries are English speaking. You can also see that there is Canada, Netherlands, and Ireland. So the majority of those countries on that league would be English speaking countries. So you can see Germany here, and this is the third most popular destination in terms of where all of the international students would go. And this is because Germany offers free education. So you also see Netherlands. Netherlands has been really climbing up the rankings with students actually wanting to go to Netherlands because of affordability and because the courses are actually taught in English. So what are the decision factors when you're thinking about study abroad? How do you make your decision? What are the factors that you actually look at? So firstly, we look at the quality of the education. Then we look at the affordability and the student finance. The visas and application process, how difficult it is to get a visa and kind of what's the life cycle of different visas and what happens down the line, what are the immigration routes. Lifestyle, very important because some countries would have a better lifestyle, better weather, better food, generally what your experience would be living like in this country, and opportunities for the future. So opportunities for the future, it's about what careers you can get into, what generally it's connected with the economic stability of the country, the employment market, the jobs available, and the actual money that you can get for doing those jobs. And generally being able to stay in the country after your graduation. So if we look at all of these factors, we would actually do a little table, and we've done that table comparing all of these countries based on the quality, the cost, the application process, lifestyle, opportunities for the future. And you can actually see that on average, kind of the top performing countries, you can see that the top performing country is actually Canada, which scores quite high on some of the parameters, but actually very low on some of the other ones. You can actually see that on average, US and UK have 4.2% of average kind of popularity index, and the lowest out of those would be actually Germany. So what this shows us is that if quality of education is really important to us, we'd probably go to the US and UK. If we are looking at the costs, then we would go to Germany because Germany offers free education. If we are looking at the application process, we would probably either go to Germany or the Netherlands because it seems to be kind of the easiest option. Then in terms of the lifestyle, well, it's all very relevant here. I would argue that lifestyle in Italy is probably a lot better than in the Netherlands. I think what's really important here, it's a very indicative table here that gives you a lot of information to think about, but really it would be up to you to decide what are the kind of the best options for you. If we look at opportunities for the future, so that means employment market, that means the kind of the cost of living and the jobs that you can do in this country and actually be paid for those jobs and stay in the country on a graduate visa. So US seems to be scoring quite high, but that probably could be because of the sheer of volume of students actually going to the US and us having that data. So again, this is all very relative to what you want. And we come back to the question of, what do I want from my studies? Do I want to get that degree and go back to my own country, do my own family business, help with the family business, or start my own company? Or do I actually want to stay in this country, perhaps study, work, perhaps get an indefinite leave to remain or a passport, settle in there and live there forever, or not forever, maybe for a little bit? So again, that really depends. If we do look at the quality of the education, so the biggest in the sector obviously would be US, Canada, UK, Ireland, and the Netherlands is catching up really now. Each of these countries would offer you something distinct. So, for example, in the US, you would have the sheer volume of institution, all sorts. I think there's about 4,000 of them overall. You would then look at countries like UK, which again is the second most popular. You would see that there is a high proportion of international students. So 20% of students actually are international. Some of the universities, like for example, Warwick University, is very international. You would have about 40% of the population being international. So that what that means for you is you can be studying alongside people from different nationalities, different backgrounds. I remember when I was doing my master's, and now, 10 years ago, I had very small cohort because I did applied linguistics, so I did finish that in 2013. So basically, out of 20 people on the course, 18 of us were from abroad and only a couple were from the UK. So in terms of Ireland, we'll be looking at the smaller education ecosystem, so as well as the Netherlands as well. Smaller number of institutions within the country, and obviously less international students, but still very good. The courses are taught in English. The Italian education system is catching up with kind of top universities located in Italy. Again, there is a lot more potential for integration with the locals. It won't be as international as you probably would see in the UK, but then the lifestyle is a lot better. You get to experience kind of Italian culture, the weather, the food would probably be not comparable to what you get here in the UK. But there are some disadvantages as well. Let's now have a look at the prestige and rankings of universities located in these countries. And you can see that US and UK are leaders in their institution being ranked top 10, top 20, top 100, top 30. How many of those really, really good universities you would have located in the country? So in the UK, for example, you would have the Russell Group, which is a group of prestigious, research intense academic universities that are located within the UK. So you would then have Canada is catching up, but then Germany, Ireland. So the takeaway from here is to look at the university, which league table is it located in, how good does it rank. So again, there is qualitative factors, but also there's quantitative factors as well. So it's really important to look at both when choosing your university, but a lot of the students would absolutely look at the rankings as well. In terms of next thing you want to look at is the support services, is what support are you going to get as an international student? American, Canadian, and British universities, as well as Ireland and Netherlands, they tend to be a lot better on that holistic student support, supporting your student journey. They would all have international office, so that's for international students who are not local. They need all sorts of support. They're generally kind of struggling to find their way around, or just struggling with the education system differences. So that's something that we say that if university does that, that means that you'll be very, very, very supported. There's well, meaning that if there's something happens and psychological difficulties or struggles, you can always talk to them. So it's more like your own personal kind of psychologist there. You would have what we particularly like about the UK education system and the American as well, is you would have your academic and personal tutor, meaning that person will be there for you to meet termly for an hour to discuss your progress. That could be your academic progress, but also that could be any personal struggles that you're experiencing generally, integrating into the country, into the local community. So as a rule of thumb, with your personal tutor, you can talk pretty much about anything that bothers you. And generally what we say is students who do well on kind of the basic meeting their basic needs, like they're happy with their accommodation, they're happy with where they are, they've got support network, they tend to do really well at that academic level. There is an accommodation team that helps you with any sort of living difficulties, whether you need to move the house or whether you need any support, or your radiator's broken in your halls of residences, they'll be there to support you. There is a students' union. So it's a student body run by students for students, and they're autonomous to the university, meaning that they're governed completely differently. So it's run by students, and you would be able to join student societies. Some universities would have 200 student societies attached to the student union. There is a vice president and different roles, student roles within this student union. They all do all sorts of support for the students. So name it, you'll probably be able to find help over there as well. And also there is English language support, a module supporting your general level of English. If you wanted to take those classes, it would be academic writing. It could be any kind of navigational activity, like doing your kind of academic research or anything like that to support, because language is so fundamental to everything that you would do. So the better level of English you have, the better you will perform within your studies. Interesting statistics is really to see in which country do we actually have a higher proportion of students graduating and finishing their degrees. And you would see that from this graph we've collated statistics that shows that UK has the highest proportion of students not giving up on their degrees. So 85% of everybody who enrolls would actually finish and graduate. And then it goes down, and the lowest proportion of students who actually graduate is in Italy. So what can that tell us? It can tell us that there's really good support systems in the countries that have a higher proportion of students graduating, that you're supported as an international student no matter what. So you're given lots of chances to do your resubmission, retake your tests, you can defer your assignments, you can ask for mitigating circumstances, you can ask for reasonable adjustments. So there is so much support that you get that it becomes almost not impossible, but it becomes really difficult to fail if you genuinely want to pass your degree and complete your degree. Next really important aspect of it is your student finance. So what you really want to know is how expensive it is to study within those countries. And we 100% we already know that UK and US are going to be the top most expensive ones. Yes, they have the prestige, but they are the most expensive places to go to. They do some scholarships, but they're very kind of targeted scholarships. So there's a whole science, and we do a really interesting video on how to get a scholarship. So we talk to students about getting those scholarships. First of all, finding them, and secondly, applying and actually getting through to get the funding. And then you can see that Canada is a little bit on the lower side, Ireland, and then Netherlands, Italy, and Germany would be the cheapest option really to study your degree abroad. So in order to assess how much it is going to cost, we need to look wider. So we need to look at how much my degree is going to cost, and then we need to look at the housing, how expensive it's going to be for me to live, your groceries, your food shopping, generally your kind of allowance money for travel, for anything that you would want to kind of buy for yourself in terms of necessities and additional things. So we do kind of give certain recommendations for students actually to make that informed decision, because yes, some universities in the UK, they're pretty much very similar in terms of the price. There are more cheaper ones, there are more expensive ones, but the location within the country would actually make a total difference. So if you are living in London, be prepared to fork out a lot of money to support your living. So that's going to be a lot more expensive automatically just because you're in London. Milk is going to be expensive, travel is going to be expensive. But then if you go to, for example, Warwick, which is located in Coventry, which is one of the cheapest cities to actually live in the UK. So your bills are going to be lower, firstly. Secondly, you might not even need to spend any money on travel because you're going to be walking on campus everywhere pretty much for the first year. So it's a kind of a nice, secure community of there, very much of a campus environment. So next really important thing to look at is actually, am I going to be allowed to work while I'm studying? And how is that going to look like? A lot of students are going abroad, and let's be honest, we are all doing it to get experience, to give ourselves a boost, to boost our CV, to get as much exposure to work and placement and internship and work experience opportunities. So when you graduate and start looking for a job, you're work ready. So some countries are better at allowing you to work during your studies, and bigger cities would probably allow you to have more opportunities. Some countries have restrictions on the work that you can do. Some countries have restrictions on the hours that you can do. So, for example, in the UK, you are not allowed to do some roles. So you generally, as a student, you're allowed to work. This is not an immigration consultation. It's more for your general awareness of your work permits and work opportunities for you to make that decision about going to a specific country. So when we are looking at UK, you would be able generally to work as a student up to 20 hours per week in term time. And there is limits in term time, so you won't be able to do any full-time roles, but you can work full-time out of term. So generally in the UK, as a rule of thumb, you can work as a student, but there's just a number of hours that is going to be restricted based on the course that you're doing. Canada as well, there's no limit on campus, so 20 hours per week off campus in term, or there is limit out of term. So generally, as a good rule of thumb, is just to investigate all of those opportunities very thoroughly and have a look. What does the country allow me to do? Does that country allow me to work whilst studying? What does the course actually offer you in terms of placement and internship opportunities? And then based on those, make a decision where you want to go. What we see as an interesting tendency, though, is increasingly a lot more students are actually starting to work while they're studying. Firstly, there is a cost of living crisis where students there's not a longer enough to have the money that the government gives you or the scholarship that you get, or your family might not be able to afford to give you for all of your expenses. So a lot of the students have to work. But secondly, what we see is those who do work throughout their degree, they are more employable at the end of the degree because you would have that amazing experience that you gain throughout your studies. So next really big thing is about applications and visas. So in this section, now we're going to have a look at the process of application, so your applicant experience to your universities and your visa application experience. So if we look at the UK, all applications for undergraduate degrees are centralized. So you're going to be applying through UCAS. This is a kind of a central portal from which student actually applies to 5 different universities, and there is a deadline of January. So there is Canada. All applications are direct to your universities, so meaning that you're going to have to do however many applications you are hoping to submit to different universities. And then the deadlines are January to March. Germany Most applications are through central portal, and the deadlines are January. In Ireland, there's again a central portal, which is really, really convenient, meaning that you submit one form and it goes out to different universities. The deadline is a little bit later, which is February. And then in Italy, most applications that are direct to universities, again, however many you choose, you'd go directly, and the deadline is May. And then in the US, there is applications directly to universities, and the deadlines are October to March. There is some application fees involved in the process. So you would have different prices depending on the country. So UK would be looking at kind of £27, and then US would be a little bit more expensive. So that's something to bear in mind for the process as well. So in terms of the applications for universities, for undergraduate applications, the UK and Ireland, they use a centralized portal, while postgraduate applications require direct contact with institutions, so similar to Canada, Italy, and the US. In Germany and the Netherlands, postgraduate students can apply directly through a central portal or directly through the institution. Most universities require a minimal IELTS score for both undergraduate and postgraduate, so bear that in mind, that you would need to pass your English language test. And then there are specific fees that you'd need to pay for your application, depending on the country and depending on the universities. I know, for example, in the UK, you'd need to pay a specific amount if you apply for your postgraduate degrees. And then remember, there are specific deadlines for each country and for each university. So what we would recommend is, once you've decided where you're applying, then you just pin down all of these details and you work towards that plan. There's also an aspect of the visa application process, and that's something to consider in terms of your choices. So each country does have their own immigration system that's quite distinct. So something to bear in mind is which visas are going to be easier or perhaps faster to get. So if you're looking at the UK, there's a specific amount. So I believe it's even more than that now. So at the time of the publication, the prices, Home Office always increase their prices. And also there is something called success rate, meaning that however many students are applying, how many of them actually get their visas. Canada seems to be the cheapest one, but the times of visa decisions can be a little bit higher. And then the US with the highest cost of the visa, and then very long decision times, and the success rate is not always good. But then again, remember, however many students are applying, so it's probably the statistics is a little bit relevant to the volume of students who actually go to the US. Now, very interesting one is about lifestyle. So your student experience, you've sorted out your decision on the quality, on the student experience, your visas, the cost of living. But now let's think about your lifestyle. What is it going to be like? And then what other opportunities you're going to have in country in terms of cultural exploration. But here, what we're really looking at is the food, the weather, and just general living condition. And if we look at the student experience that way, we'll probably see that Italy seems to be the highest ranking in terms of the food and the weather that it offers. It's generally a nice, warm, holiday type of country. It's nicer to live there in terms of the food and the weather that you get. And then UK tends to be the most miserable one because, let's be honest, food's not always great, and the weather tends to be really great and gloomy throughout the year, and that's kind of the generic student experience. And then US seems to be quite a good one as well. It depends on where you are probably within the country. One also thing to remember is the location of the study destination relevant to your home. And if you do want to travel back home and you live somewhere in Europe and you decide to go to the States, you're going to be far away from home. How much is it going to cost you to go back home every time for the holidays? And Christmas and Easter and the summer break are the two big holidays that students absolutely want to go back home for. And imagine if the flights would cost you about a couple of grand each time return. That would be on top of your budget. So is that something you would be able to afford? Is that something that's comfortable in terms of the time commitments? If you are located, however, in the UK and in Europe, it's a lot faster. You can travel the entire Europe within a few days and a few weeks. So that's something again to consider. How close are you to your home country and what are the travel links? And now last but not least is the opportunities for the future. It's about career prospects for you as a graduate. And we do our degrees to give ourselves a boost in terms of career prospects and developing our brand, developing our skills, developing our portfolio of different projects that we've done, academic knowledge, and work experience that we've done. So what is the country going to offer you in terms of your employment opportunities? How many of the students actually stay within the country and get the job? What kind of jobs are they getting? What's the average income and average graduate income that you can earn within this country? So these are really important questions to consider. And this is very, very generic statistics that's given overall for the country. It's very nuanced when you're looking at a specific location with the university that you're applying to. But that's something really good to bear in mind, especially if you're wanting to pursue further education opportunities in that country. But also another side of this is really how many students actually stay on work visas after the graduation. So UK has been recently tightening up their immigration policy, specifically related to international students, trying to cut down on the number of general migration. But what we see here is interesting statistics of how many students actually stayed and worked on a graduate visa in the UK compared to the US. And there are different reasons why some people decided to leave. Perhaps they have a family business, or perhaps they have already a job offer from their home country. But this is just generally interesting to see as statistics in relation to your goals. And if you decide that you want to stay in the country and actually get that graduate job afterwards, it's really important to look at what are the best options for me. Some students decide to proceed with their studies. We see a lot of students who actually then do a master's degree and then do a PhD degree. And in fact, some students do several masters. So you need to see that progression kind of scale as well, whether it's allowed or not. But then again, proceeding with their studies is another opportunity. And most likely what we see as students are staying within the country that they did their first degree. They're staying locally. So students tend to choose one location and then kind of travel around within this one location because it's just so much easier. You've relocated, it's such a big stress to the system. You've done a lot to move the country, and then moving another country seems to be like a big stress, or maybe you've made a family or settled down here. So let's recap. Let's look at each country and have a look. What are the pros and cons of this specific country as a study destination? United Kingdom, generally quite renowned for the quality of the education system, for top ranking higher education institutions, general wraparound support around your studies, good student services, and high completion rate. You've got the native speaking, English speaking environment and many options for the future, and a really high graduate employment rate. In terms of the cons, so you get what you pay for, so you get high tuition fees. We do support students with getting scholarships in the UK and US, so we work with students individually. Just because those scholarships, there's no centralized portal, and they all scattered around across different portals as well. There are very strict visa requirements, financial requirements as well, so you need to have a certain level of money that you have available, and then the lifestyle as well. So it's weather and food tends to get the lowest rankings from our international. Canada, despite its size, have a significant higher proportion of top ranking institutions, which are quite diverse in terms of their range. Canada appeals to students in terms of its lifestyle and being able to do things outdoors in nature, and very international and multicultural and welcoming community that you have in Canada, and generally natural beauty with many opportunities for outdoor activities. The international student satisfaction tends to be quite high. On the con side, the international student satisfaction is lower than in competitive countries like US and UK. It's very expensive, a complicated application process with no centralized application portal, and graduate employment rates are lower than in European countries. Germany tends to be really popular with the students who A, can speak German, and B, want to have lower or no tuition fees at all, because the government offers students scholarships and grants to be able to support themselves throughout their studies. This cost of living affordability, a really good one. In terms of the cons, there's limited support services for international students, and actually if we go back, we'll probably see that the completion rate of students graduating from German universities is a lot lower. English is not widely spoken in the country, so you should be able and you should be prepared to speak German to be able to navigate that. And then limited designated student accommodation available, very similar to the Netherlands. Ireland is an English language speaking country with a lot of really good higher ranked universities, very small, very cozy community with universities that have different campuses. In terms of the pros, we have a lot of student support for international students, high student satisfaction amongst international students. We've got strong student support services, English native speakers in Ireland, so you'd be able to pick up that language. There are lots of cons as well. There's a smaller education sector and fewer highly ranked universities. You've the main probably drawback would be around kind of the weather being a little bit unappealing, and the high tuition fees and the cost of living is second only to the US. It's quite an expensive location to be in. Italy, a sunny country, very good for lifestyle. It's got cultural and natural appeal and attraction, excellent weather and food. There's no application fees, very easy visa application process, low tuition fees, cheaper living costs. But then it comes at a cost. So in terms of the cons, we're looking at fewer highly ranked universities, limited support services, a language barrier as well. So you should be able to, like similar to Germany, probably to speak Italian or at least start to learn it, and very low employment prospects after graduation. So a lot of Italians would be looking to travel themselves elsewhere to be able to secure those jobs. Netherlands has been really popular recently with a lot more, especially after Brexit, where a lot of European students actually go to the Netherlands because of the English language courses and taught in English, and very good efficient public transport system, healthcare, safe streets, high graduate employment rates, really affordable tuition and living costs. But then there are fewer highly ranked universities and generally lower student satisfaction as well. But again, all of these numbers are very relative. So what's really important is you make your own decision. So the US obviously is one of the most popular destinations, very large sector of higher education institutions, very diverse courses, very top ranked universities, high graduate salaries, very multicultural environment. But then it comes at a cost. So very, very expensive tuition fees, limited scholarships, very complicated and expensive visa process. So if you can nail all of those, you can meet the financial requirements. This is a really good destination to study. So how do we make that decision? Well, first of all, what we say is the first number one step is actually decide Why do I want to go abroad and what do I want to get out of it? This is the central idea that permeates everything else that you do. Then we establish our decision criteria. What is important to me as an international student? Is the lifestyle important? Is the quality of education important? And then you start ranking those on the scale of importance. Let's say you prioritize the quality of your education over lifestyle, then we're definitely choosing UK, US over Italy. So if you want to have fun and experience a really good country to live, really interesting cultural heritage, or you're generally a fan of Italian culture, then again, the question is about what are your important criteria. So then you do the weighing, so you select the ones that are top choice for you, and we start generating the alternatives. So we start looking at what are the options that are available to me. And then we look at those alternatives, we give them a particular weighing, and then we've got our shortlist. So we've got our best alternatives that we've created out of this process. And that's when it's time to start building your profile